Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville. I invite everyone to join Council in singing O Canada. Thank you very much. Would you please be seated? We'll begin our meeting after I read our opening prayer, followed by our moment of silent reflection. And with that, I'll begin. God, grant us understanding and patience, that justice, truth, and honesty may be evident in our decisions. Make us mindful of the needs of the people throughout the town of Oakville. Help us govern with the wider community in mind, and so create in us a desire for progress and responsible action. We ask this in your name. Amen. Thank you very much. I don't believe we have any regrets this evening, and Council, I'll ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, I'll call your attention to the minutes of the previous Council meetings of May 16th, May 24th, and the closed session of Council on May 24th, and ask how Councillor Johnston moves the minutes, Councillor Robinson seconds, corrections, separations, all in favor? Opposed, if any. The minutes are adopted. We have no public presentations, but we do have 4 listed delegations, and those are all concerning the Administrative Services Committee report from May 25th, item 5, the Woodington Lane Private Sewage Pump Station. And I'd ask the clerk to call the first delegation.
You're going to deal with that item out of order first.
Pardon?
The congratulatory motion out of order.
Oh, you want to do that at the top?
Yes.
Excuse me. We are not going to do that. Instead, we're going to pull an item up from the agenda at the end, which is a congratulatory motion for the June 2011 World Games in Athens, Greece, brought to us by Councillors Grant and Knoll. Councillor Grant?
Thank you. As I think everybody has this on their desk in front of them, but I'll just read this out. It's a congratulatory motion. It says that Council extend its congratulations to Emily Boycott, Alicia Donaghy, Johnson, Stephanie Van Dam, and Sophia Dursko. I hope I got that right. Members of the Oakville Butterflies Gymnastic Club on their achievement of having been 4 of the 5 chosen members of Team Canada to compete in the Special Olympic Rhythmic Gymnastic World Games event in Athens, Greece in June 2011, and that Council extend its best wishes to the Olympic Rhythmic Gymnastic athletes, including its 5th member, Christina Campbell from Ottawa, Ontario, for success in the 2011 Winter World Games. World Games. If the 3 competitors would like to stand up, and I'd also like to ask Debbie Boycott and Janice Donahue, to the coaches, stand up and be recognized. Okay, great. Thank you. And just so you remember us while you're there, I doubt you'd ever forget Oakville, but we have some pins for you and your team. Okay, we'll come.
Councillor Grant, perhaps you two would like to pass the pins? Go ahead. Take your time. Congratulations on behalf of council to all of you on your achievement, and we hope you'll bring home glory, fame, and honor for the town.
Thank you. That's why I got this tickle in my throat. I couldn't get rid of it. Now we're on the delegation.
All right. Thank you very much, councillors, for bringing that to council, and all the best to everyone involved. Now I think we'll turn to the delegations. Madam Clerk, would you call the first delegation?
The first delegation is Steve Segal regarding the Woodington Lane Private Sewage Pump Station, item 5 of the Administrative Services Committee agenda.
Good evening, sir. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you. That was a tough act to follow. Your worship,
If you would assist everyone, people at home would be able to hear you if you, that's right.
Thank you.
And that'll help everybody. Thank you.
Your worship and members of council, I'm here not to question the legal department's competence, but to remind you of several points that I've made in the past, either through correspondence or through presentations before committees and council. I need to emphasize that I'm not a member of the board of directors and that I have not seen the terms of the settlement reached with the builder several years ago, referred to in the legal report. I'm at arm's length from the past legal proceedings and mediated settlement with the builder. Therefore, your legal department should not paint me with the same brush as the board. I'm simply a tax-paying homeowner asking for transparency. I feel that someone dropped the ball within the system, and I'm requesting that you make it right, despite what the legal report recommends. I was disappointed to see this report on the town website. I'm asking you to not refute the legal report, but to discount it. Why are we getting a legal department staff report anyway? I've indicated over and over again that I'm not challenging the law or the competency of your lawyers, nor do I want to arm wrestle on legal grounds. I'm well aware of the fact that our board settled with the builder. My presentation to you has nothing to do with the settlement. Please look beyond the legal speak. Our issue was raised with Mr. Quast of the building department in 2006. It was he who encouraged us to go after the builder and developer. Obviously protecting the town, Mr. Quast did not suggest that we should conclude the town or region in our action. Unfortunately for us, neither did our lawyer. Since the settlement, and after many months of us presenting our concerns, council was good enough to arrange for Ms. Cloesy, Director of Planning and Development, to commission an independent engineering report. I'm not sure that we got our answers through the legal report. As well, legal is continuing to insist that our problem is a private one. I feel that this claim is irrelevant since we're all governed by public codes vis-a-vis development. Was this not a public development issue occurring long before any of us bought our homes and entered into this so-called condominium status? The legal report is basically reinventing the wheel in referring to the absence of the town's liability. It has simply repeated Ms. Huxwith's dissertation of last summer, indicating that this approval system is common throughout Ontario. Furthermore, she clearly stated that the system is not perfect. The report reminds us of this unfortunate buyer beware situation. We are simply requesting some discretionary compassion from you. I'd love for you to get past the legal speak, use discretion, and protect the homeowners and taxpayers and maintain the livability in the town of Oakville. I'm asking you to not base your opinions on any of the legal speak and overlook the black and white of the legal print. This issue of public development was born in the planning stages in 2004. It's not clear to me that the engineering report dealt with the list of violations, deficiencies, and potential outcomes that other professional engineers, such as R.V. Anderson and Trafalgar Engineering, have indicated clearly exist. For example, the insufficient holding capacity, the less than minimum required flow rate, the diameter of the well, and the duty requirements of the pumps, just to name a few. Furthermore, the point made about guidelines versus standards is, in my mind, simply semantics. It seems to be a convenient escape for the legal department that I'd like you to look past. The design of our pump system was described by the independent engineering report as extremely poor. This harsh terminology borders on the extremest of categories, such as deficient and in violation of code. This must raise a flag for you. Our builder took advantage of the flawed province-wide system where plans can get rubber stamped. As a result, got away with cheap, shabby construction. Only after the settlement that the builder and developer so quickly agreed to did we find more damning violations and deficiencies. It was too late to re-sue the builder and developer. I'd like to remind you to not hang the community because of this mediated settlement. That, in a nutshell, is why I'm here to appeal to your sense of fairness. This entire appeal has been aimed at our elected officials to right the wrong. I'm sure that due to past correspondence and reporting, Oakville town staff and elected officials must suspect that our problem started in the planning stage. Let me tell you what one of our engineers with pump station experience said. Quote, "What failed was that a building permit was issued for work that was clearly in gross violation of the building code. This makes the fact that an engineer stamp a moot point. A simple cursory glance at the submitted drawings is all it would have taken to identify the non-compliance matter. Pure and simple." End quote. Mr. Chair, how can such differing opinions exist? Human error in assessing the original design occurred. Someone dropped the ball, according to our engineer. In our case, I'd like you to revisit this problem of staff error and be accountable. I'm asking you to act fairly in your decision-making and don't use the convenient out that the legal department is giving you. To me, it's all about protecting the citizens. This past Saturday, we had our 7th or 8th pump failure this year, since January. I happened to be there to witness it. Our maintenance people were there at about 10:30 in the morning. They were there 20 minutes after they got the alarm call. I saw groundwater cascading into the well from the outside, meaning there were holes in the actual concrete wall of the well. He said by the time he got there, which was 21 minutes after he got the alarm call, there was already backup going up the sewer pipe. Another half hour, it would have flooded it would have started going into someone's basement. This is just, as I said, this is the 7th or 8th service call just this year. I spoke to the technician today. He claims that he comes out an average of 2 to 3 times a month. Getting back to the groundwater that's coming into the well, it stands to reason that any of our wastewater can also get out into the surrounding ground area. Soil samples would obviously be able to prove that. I don't have the proof now, but it just stands to reason that if water can get in, then if outside water can get in, then inside water can get out. That has to me, that's an environmental hazard. Thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you very much, sir, for your information. Questions? Thank you, Mr. Segal. Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
The next delegation is Adrian Peach regarding the same item.
Welcome, Mr. Peach. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm a professional engineer, but I'm speaking in the capacity of a resident, third house from the pump, so I have a very vested interest in this. What I'm going to present to you is without prejudice. I agree entirely with what Mr. Segal has said to you, that we're not trying to discuss competency or to discredit anybody. But I fear that there's a bunkering down has taken place here behind some of the legal issues. And I'm intending to present to you just a couple of these issues that I hope you take into consideration when you consider the legal report. The first is that the legal report has made a great deal out of guidelines versus standards. As I said, I'm an engineer. I use standards, I use guidelines every single day of my working life. I know the difference between them. In the case of the building code and the Ministry of Environment guidelines, there's some clear text actually in the documents. The OBC states in paragraph 7155, private sewers and private water supply pipes shall be installed according to MOE guidelines. Shall is mandatory. The MOE guidelines in paragraph 4, and this is where I fear that we've bunkered down in the first instance, states that it is a guideline. It says, as a final point, it must be emphasized that this document contains design guidelines. These should not be confused with standards or regulations, which must be absolutely complied with in order to obtain approval. It is not the intention of the Ministry of Environment to stifle innovation. And this is the key to the guideline. Whenever a designer can demonstrate that environmental and/or health conditions can be safeguarded by alternative approaches, such methods will be considered for approval. It doesn't mean you can ignore the guidelines. It means the guidelines set a minimum standard, and if you can meet the intent by doing the design in a different way, put it forwards and it can be considered for approval. But it doesn't mean you can just ignore the guidelines. If you don't have an alternative approach, the guideline applies. If your alternative approach isn't approved, the guideline applies. It is the minimum standard. The ministry has a policy on its website which states, staff at your municipality will review your application to confirm that the proposed work complies with the building code. And it then goes on, for construction of a sewage system, the inspector has 5 working days to conduct the inspection. Key to this, during the inspection, a building inspector will inspect the work to determine if it is carried out in accordance with the building code, your permit and the approved plans. It will be checked against the building code, which points you to the MOE guidelines. It'll be checked against the permit and it will be checked against the plans. That's the ministry's policy. The legal report focused on the reliance on the engineer's seal. This was the builder's engineer's seal as normal municipal practice. Canadian case law is entirely consistent with that. You can rely on an engineer's seal if it's a policy decision and you do it in all cases. But inspection is the second component, and it doesn't allow you to rely on the builder's engineer, sorry. And Canadian case law has gone to the Supreme Court through Anns versus London Borough of Merton, which is cited in the Kamloops versus Nielsen case. And it states that once a municipality makes a policy decision to inspect building plans and construction, it owes a duty of care to all who it is reasonable to conclude might be injured as a result of the negligent exercise of those powers. Our sewage pump was inspected. What this meant, and this is taken from the summary judgment, once it's determined that an inspection has actually occurred and that a duty of care is owed by the public actor to all who might be injured by a negligent inspection, traditional negligence analysis will therefore be applied. In other words, there is a liability with that second component. The town had an obligation to inspect. So the same case law goes on to explain what would be expected of that inspection. It states that the inspector must exercise a standard of care in its inspection that would be expected of an ordinary, reasonable, and prudent inspector in the particular circumstances. As in the first presentation you heard, we have some major deficiencies in this sewage pump. The wet well plan area, the size of the hole in the ground, 1.13 square meters, and the MOE guideline is 4.5 square meters. It's not even a third of the size that it's supposed to be. The quote from the case law was an inspection that an ordinary, reasonable, and prudent inspector in the particular circumstances would conduct, spotting that the hole in the ground is less than a third of the size that it should have been, clearly should have been picked up. That's clearly expected of a reasonable inspection. The storage capacity as a result of that is 25 minutes peak and 73 minutes average. Halton region, to which you have to inspect their regulations, require 120 minutes and 240 minutes respectively. Again, the moment they saw the size of that hole in the ground when inspecting, they should have been looking at things like the capacity, because you have regional standards to comply with. The force main velocity is under spec, 0.63 meters per second versus 0.8 to 2.5. You're not going to spot that from an inspection. But when you see major deficiencies of the nature of the wet well plan area and the storage capacity, it should send the inspector to the plans, and these kind of issues should be discovered. I don't raise these two issues, as I said at the beginning, to try and discredit or address issues of competency. They're issues that clearly exist. They're considerations that need to be looked at by the council when accepting the legal report. The idea of bunkering down behind the law in this situation isn't protecting the taxpayers of this town. There's 41 houses that pay tax on this street that are affected by this pump. And if the inspection regime has not been corrected from what happened here, then there are potentially many more taxpayers that are going to face the same situation. We're just asking that the council truly considers the issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information. Councillor Adams.
Thanks very much for joining us again this evening. I think you provided the same material last week.
Many times.
And I know previously. It's not really a question of you, but I wonder, Your Worship, could we ask our staff to provide a response with respect to those issues around the inspection and the safety of the area? I know the issue of the safety of the area and any adverse consequences is dealt with on page 36 of our public report, but I think it would be useful and important for our staff to be able to respond to some of those questions, and particularly the issue of the safety of the broader community.
If we were to follow our normal procedure, we would wait till we get to the item for all of that, and we have two more delegations we may harvest more questions from. How about we wait and go there?
I'm at your leisure.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Peach. Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
Is Angie Phylax regarding the same issue? I'm sorry if I've said that wrong.
Good evening, welcome to both of you.
Yes.
We look forward to your information.
The youngest taxpayer on Woodington Lane. My name is Angie Felix, and I actually am a member of the board. I was a member of the board at the time. However, I'm here as a taxpayer. And I just had a couple questions, and I just wanted to, when I bought my house, I didn't know it was a condo corporation. It was never disclosed to me. And the opening weekend I moved in, someone knocked on my door and said, don't flush the toilets, don't take a bath, and don't run the dishwasher because our pump just failed. So it was really a rather shocking welcome to Oakville, because I had lived in Burlington prior to that. And needless to say, I've been quite disappointed in, I love my house, I love the neighborhood, I love almost everything about Oakville, but I've been quite disappointed in my experience with respect to dealing with the town in this issue. Last week we had a meeting, and a member, I believe it's Nadia from the legal department, was there. And one of the statements she made was that when the builder would have presented the drawings to them, it would be no one in the staff's capacity, responsibility to look at those drawings, and it certainly would not be their position to question an engineer. So my question to the town council and to staff would be, what is the purpose of the town getting those drawings, if not just to generate revenue, if no one's responsible? As a taxpayer and someone who bought a home in Oakville, I certainly do expect a duty of care that Oakville had towards me, that this was inspected, that this was approved, it was looked at by somebody else, whatever the peer review policy is. I just wonder what happened there and why, as a taxpayer, I'm not being looked after. And that's really all I have to say.
Councillor Adams.
Thanks for attending yet another meeting. Could you just tell me, have you asked for a copy of the report? the engineer report?
By freedom of
FOI?
information? Has it been submitted? Tomorrow it will be submitted.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk, the next delegation, please.
Is Larry Obrecht, again regarding the Woodington Lane issue.
Mr. Obrecht, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Mayor, councils. I am, of course, a resident of Woodington Lane. I'm also a senior partner for Opie McCarthy and Associates, which is a project management firm. And one of our duties as a project manager, or one of our services we provide, is we negotiate with different municipalities for site plan approvals and building permits for our clients, mostly commercial and institutional clients. But the building code is all the same for all, different sections, but this is the same for all. And I find it very strange to be on this side of the site plan agreement when I would usually be on the developer's side. But it's also very strange to find that I have heard legal counsel say that the city does no review of drawings and no review of applications and things like that. I submit thousands of applications for building permit, hundreds of applications for site plan approval, all of which go to the city, all of which I get answers back. I also get comments back. I get questions. I engage engineers and architects. The people within the cities and the municipalities and the towns all come back with questions as to how I interpreted it, what's wrong with this, how did you get these answers, how did you get the calculation of what's going on. So obviously it happens in all the municipalities across Ontario, and I know what happens here because I worked in Oakville. I mean, you're a competent town. Your staff is competent. You do your job. There seems to be a problem with the sanitary sewer systems that relate to condominiums in the town of Oakville. They have pumping stations that don't seem to be reviewed by anybody. I've asked this question a few times. Is the building permits a responsibility or is the planning department's responsibility? And I've been told two different answers because it's an outside sanitary system. It's not an interior where the plumbing department would already take care of things. I know from experience it's dealt with by the planning department. In this case, we've been told that it was stamped by an engineer and that engineering stamp was accepted carte blanche. I've never had that happen to me in all the times I've been in business. I've been in business since 1986. No one ever accepts anything carte blanche. Engineers make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. There's been a big mistake made here. I'm not sure you can help us, but we can certainly fix it for everybody else. The people that follow us have the same problems. You've got all kinds of townhouse complexes that are built on ravines that need pumping stations. The town has to put in place a system to put take the guidelines and make the responsibility of the people doing development. This is strange for me to say since I usually represent those people. But you cannot take your legal advice that says put your head in the sand and do nothing. That would be foolish on your part and foolish on our part. It would not suit the citizens of this nice town. I'm afraid that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information. Councillor Khan? Excuse me, sir.
Thank you very much for your delegation.
If you're willing, Councillor Khan has questions.
You said that our staff shouldn't be looking at the engineering certificate carte blanche. What would you expect them to do? How deep would you expect them to delve into this, and what would you be recommending?
Well, typically what happens is you submit your engineered drawings to the city. The city reviews them in terms of how they comply with the guidelines of the building permit or the Ontario Building Code and with the guidelines of the town. You have bylaws that state how development is made, how underground services are put in. You have an engineering department that says what restrictions you have. You have the region who deals with probably, and as in most cases, deals with stormwater and water. There's capacity to have all these things dealt with. You paid an independent report to look at our engineering review. our design review, a peer review they call it. There's no reason why that peer review can't be done. If you don't have the capacity and the staff in-house to review this type of thing, there's no reason why the developer can't be charged that $100 a unit to do the peer review ahead of time. An independent engineer to give you a second opinion. I wouldn't go to a doctor and get myself operated on without getting a second opinion. Why would you do that with an engineer?
Thank you very much for the advice, sir. Is that the?
That's the end of the delegation.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, Council, that brings us to your Standing Committee and Committee of the Whole reports. And what we have are the Community Services Committee report of May 25th, the Administrative Services Committee of May 25th, about part of which we've just heard, and the confidential report of the closed session of the Administrative Services Committee on May 25th. How do you wish to proceed? Councillor Adams.
I'll move the CSC materials and the EAC save for item 5, which is the Woodington Lane item.
All right, Councillor Adams is separating item 5 from ASC and moving the balance, if I understand correctly, and I'm looking for a second. Councillor Khan. Any separations on anything else? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Councillor Adams, you have the floor for item 5.
Could I get staff to respond to some of the questions and concerns that were raised during the delegations with respect to the inspection process that the town would use, whether in fact an inspector inspected the station or whether the inspector inspected other things other than? How did that process work? What did it look like? And was something missed? And the second question that I'd like responded to is the one around the issue of, is there a risk for the broader community that other people off of Woodington Lane should be concerned about?
And I would just, to assist you, Mr. Town Manager, in fielding this and assigning the pieces out, there may have been an unfortunate misstatement or misunderstanding which I see in the remark that there was no, I don't believe that our legal counsel actually told us that there was no inspection and no review. There's quite a lot of involved in a development. There's a fine distinction trying to be made about I'll call it the sewage system. So if you could clarify for the sake of the public's, I think it'd be reassuring to the public to know that it's not total carte blanche.
Mayor and members of council, in terms of the inspection process, very similar to the design review, there is a series of reviews or inspections that happen on the site. The facility itself is inspected by the building department. At the end of the day, the inspection of the pump station itself, the reliance is on the engineer in terms of the overall design of the pump station to ensure that the inspection and the construction of that pump station met the design drawings that were approved as part of the building permit process. And I would further add, and I think this was indicated the last time we met, the building department, when they review drawings, don't necessarily take a carte blanche approach to it. They certainly look at the drawings and they evaluate whether or not, in their own judgment, they see any major errors with them. If there is some major errors, they would then identify those errors to the applicant where they understood or knew about them, so that the applicant could then take it into consideration. If at the end of the day the design engineer comes back and says that, no, this is the way it should be done, then we rely at the end of the day on their design and their certification of the design. So we take an active role, but at the end, when a permit is issued or when the inspection is signed off on, it's the design engineer we rely on.
Councillor Adams, did you have further questions?
Well, I'll come back to the issue of safety in a minute, but in a case where there's a failure of a system wherein we relied on a certificate, to whom does the owner go? What's the appropriate recourse for a homeowner, for example?
So for example, if there was an open building permit on that site, The owner could come back to the town. The town would then have the opportunity to go back to the builder to indicate that there are issues with it and follow up with the builder.
But this is a case where there is no open building permit.
That's correct, and there's already been a legal action on this particular site, which really, in essence, closes our opportunities to pursue that avenue.
But my point is the recourse is not to the town, the recourse is to the builder who provided the certificate in the first place.
That's correct, through that engineer.
Thank you. Back to my original questions, I had a question for you. I wanted you to clarify this issue of, is anybody off of Woodington Lane at risk of any environmental hazard? And I'm looking on page 36 where there's the opinion of Stantec where there is none. And I just wanted to have you confirm that. I didn't want that being left out there for people to be concerned about. Can you confirm that there's no additional risk to residents in the surrounding community?
That was a specific question of council that Stantec specifically addressed, and their conclusion was there was no off-site environmental impact.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Khan.
Commissioner, I just have a few questions. You said that our staff would review the design drawings that the engineers had prepared. Do you know in this instance whether or not we did that and whether or not we had any objections to the initial design drawings?
No, I couldn't be specific. It was quite a number of years that the design drawings were drawn. I gave you an example of what is our customary process, so I can only assume that was the process that we took in this case. Pump stations are fairly unique type of equipment, so I mean, with the expertise of our staff, we would have looked at any obvious issues, but it is a particular expertise.
And I appreciate that. My only concern here is that the report says that the design was inferior and had deficiencies. And when you stated that our staff would review these design drawings, I was wondering whether or not it was deficient enough for our staff to have picked that up. I appreciate that I'm putting you, on the spot here. You don't have that information. If you can, would we be able to retrieve that information from our records?
I don't know if we could, but I think at the end of the day, even if there were issues that were brought up through that staff review, it would have been the design engineer that certified those drawings that we would have relied on. So whatever series of discussions had happened through that permit review process, we can only rely on that design engineer at the end of the day because they're certifying those drawings then meet the building code requirements.
Fair enough, but we also then see whether or not the actual pump meets those design drawings through our inspection. Is that do we outsource that or do we do that in-house?
No, we would rely on the engineer who constructed those to certify that they meet those design requirements which then meet the building code requirements.
And one of the delegates earlier had mentioned that staff had inspected the sewage pump. Would we have done that?
As I said, we would have done general inspection in the site, but inspecting the pump station to ensure it complied with the building code requirements or the permit requirements, we would have relied on the design engineer to do that work.
Councillor Bird.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just for clarification, approximately how many different, I guess, engineering disciplines or design stamps by an engineer would be on a particular multi-residential development? Is there obviously this engineering stamps, structural engineers? Like how many different engineering stamps would normally be on one?
There are several different engineering stamps, and you gave the example of the structural engineer. There's a lot of other studies that we'd rely on, geotechnical studies, those types of things in order to ensure that that engineer has done the work in accordance with requirements either set by the town or through other ministries.
So staff looking at those drawings, approximately how many different engineering stamps numerically would they be, on the average, be looking for?
46.
4?
46.
4
to 6, sorry.
4 to 6. So if we were to require a peer review of all 4 to 6 or ones that jump out, like how would we sort of suggest which ones we can depend on without a peer review and which ones? I'm just following up on the question. And if we started to do that in the town of Oakville, besides the additional cost, which I think would be charged back to the applicant for building permit, what would that do in, what I hear all the time, red carpet, red tape? How long would that normally delay a process until we get a peer review on those stamps?
Well, it would do two things. It would increase the cost significantly because you'd have to recover the peer review costs, and it would increase the time. And at the recent changes, or the changes a few years ago with the building code, it actually puts specific timeframes in which you have to deal with a building permit. That would be the implications of requiring peer reviews on the 4 to 6 different reports.
So the process,
process would get
may
longer.
not even allow us to do it even if we wanted to delay a particular application because we were questioning an engineer's stamp?
That's our estimation of it. So we've put in place a process that best reflects the building code timeframe requirements and a cost for the application.
Thank you.
And I would add, too, it also reflects what is the Ontario standard in terms of reviewing engineering drawings that most municipalities use.
All right, other questions? Thank you very much, Commissioner. Councillor Adams, you separated the item.
I'll move the item as presented in the committee minutes. That's item 5, as well as the receipt of the confidential report.
Item 5 is moved by Councillor Adams along with the confidential report
And if I could just-
seconded by Councillor Khan.
And if I could just speak to that momentarily.
You have the floor.
Similar to the discussion at ASC, we recognize that this is receipt of the report, it's not making comment on it, and it gives us some time to consider it further at a later date, should we wish.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. That brings us to our consent item, which is item C1 from CSC of May 10th, and that's the proposed and pending acquisition and disposition of land. The report from Planning Services, this item was deferred from the council meeting of May 16th, and the recommendation is that the Planning Services report be received. What's your pleasure, council?
Can we move that at the end of the meeting?
We can slip that down the...
Yes, thank you.
Well, is there a need to do that?
Yeah, I'd like to go in on camera on this one.
You want to go into camera on that? All righty then, we'll just slip that to the end of the meeting. That brings us to our first discussion item, which is council appointments, the second item on the agenda. And though the reports are found on pages 35 to 38 of your agenda, and the first, let's deal with them separately since they're two different things. The first one is that a determination be made with regard to the 2012 Budget Committee appointments, and the chair recognizes Councillor Khan.
Yeah, whatever page is it? Your Worship, I recommend that we appoint Councillor Adams again as chair. Well, I guess they'll decide if they want to be chair. Councillor Demoff, Councillor Johnson, and Councillor Elgar, please.
I need a seconder for that motion. Councillor Lapworth, thank you. All right, discussion, Councillor Demoff.
I wonder if you could clarify me in our procedures under Section 2.5 Standing Committees. Section C, it says, "The Budget Committee, composed of the mayor and 4 members of council, shall include 1 member of the previous year's committee to provide continuity to the committee where possible. The member from the previous year's Budget Committee shall be recommended each year by the Budget Committee as part of its final report to council." I've looked through the final report to council, and I don't see a name that was included in that report, and I have to be honest, I didn't notice it at the time, but it also indicates 1 member of the previous year's committee, and I think the names being put forward include 2. So I wonder if you can clarify that for me.
The clause you're reading is a minimum, not a maximum. Council can appoint anyone it wants.
But it doesn't say a minimum of, it says 1. And it also was supposed to have been recommended by the previous committee, and it was not.
Well, where would you like to go with this?
I think given that there's 6 people that have put their names forward, that it would be fair that one member of the previous year's committee put their name forward, and that 2 of the people who were not on the list read by Councillor Khan be considered for the Budget Committee.
Then your proper procedure is to defeat the motion on the floor and replace it with one of your own.
With all due respect, though, the procedures say one member, and we're putting forward a motion that is not in these procedures.
The council, the motion is fully in compliance with our procedure. The procedure does not say that that's a maximum. And if you don't like my ruling on it, you can challenge that. Do you accept the ruling?
To be perfectly honest with you, I think when it says one, it should mean one. I don't think they should be open to interpretation. If the intent of it is at least one, then that's what the procedure should say. The chair considers that the ruling that he's given you is challenged, and I ask council, do you uphold my ruling? All those in favor of my ruling, please.
Actually, Your Worship, perhaps we can get that up on the procedure up on the screen so we can all take a read at it.
What's up? See.
I don't think that's your page, unless it's at the top. All right. Council, we've treated it this way as not a maximum every year that I've been on council. Anyway, the matter is clear. This is a matter for council to decide. If the member doesn't like the ruling of the chair, the appeal is to the council. I take it that we have an appeal. All those in favor of the chair's ruling, please raise your hands. Councillor Knoll, it's...
Sorry, I was trying to get your attention. Can I offer something before you take the vote?
Sure.
Thank you. I've obviously expressed concern about the nomination process in the past, and I think what Councillor Demoff is really trying to get at, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but there are a number of people who expressed interest in serving on this committee. So instead of nominating a slate, could we not revert to the Roberts Rules procedure of nominating all the people and taking a vote for each individual that wants to serve on the committee?
If you defeat the motion on the floor, you can do anything that's within our procedure bylaw. But there is a valid motion on the floor, and there is a ruling on the floor. All those in favor of the mayor's ruling, of the ruling I've made, please raise your hands. The ruling stands. The motion is available for amendment and/or vote. Is there amendment or discussion? All in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? Please raise your hands. The motion carries. That brings us to the next item, which is the recommendation that Councillors Adams, Giddings, and Knoll be appointed to the task force to review options for advisory committees. Councillor Khan. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Adams. Councillor Adams?
Can I just clarify whether or not, I'm looking at the bylaw in front of us on the screen right now, and it speaks about the mayor, acting mayor being ex officio member of every standing committee. Would that apply to this particular task force or not?
No, this isn't a standing committee.
Could we, that's what I thought, could we add yourself as a member as well? given that you've in the past done mayor's advisory groups, and I think that's one of the options that we should consider.
I'm willing to be added to the task force.
Okay. Could we, it's an amendment that he's included.
All right, so the motion is that Councillors Adams, Giddings, and Knoll, and Mayor Burton be appointed to the task force to review options for advisory committees. Any discussion? Councillor Knoll.
My only discussion is that it's now 4 members, so it's, you have the prospect of a tie. Do you want to?
I don't believe that's a problem. Eventually, council has to make the decision.
Okay, fair enough.
All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. That brings us to item number 3, the Oakville Hydro financial statements and Director Stippen report from the Commissioner of Corporate Services. And the recommendations are that the resolutions as submitted by Oakville Hydro Corporation with regard to the following matters be approved: the acceptance of the consolidated financial statements of Oakville Hydro Corporation, the compensation for directors of Oakville Hydro Corporation, and the appointment of auditors of the Oakville Hydro Corporation, and that the mayor, as shareholder representative pursuant to the shareholder declaration, be authorized to sign the resolutions for and on behalf of the town in its capacity as the sole shareholder. And Mr. Lalonde, do you have a report or a presentation?
I will just introduce Mr. Rob Lister, the CEO of Oakville Hydro Corporation, who will present his staff and the reports for your pleasure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Welcome, Mr. Lister, as president of Oakville Hydro. Your information is looked forward to by council, and it appears we have a presentation, so you'll have our rapt attention.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, I'm pleased to address council this evening, and my throat's developed something today, so I have to struggle with this for a second. Yeah, thank you, Gordon.
You have what the clerk had. Maybe it's going around.
I'd like to introduce today's key people I have with me from Oakville Hydro. Mr. Gary Burkett, Chair of the Oakville Hydro Board of Directors. Good evening. Mr. John Mitchell, Board Member. Lucy Ricci, Acting CFO. Tom Goldie, Vice President of Customer Services and Organizational Development. Scott Moody, Vice President of Oakville Hydro Energy Services, Inc. Mike Brown, Vice President of Engineering and Operations. Vivek Radhakrishnan, Acting Corporate Secretary. So this evening I'm going to provide you an overview of Oakville Hydro, and I look forward some of our accomplishments and challenges. Tom Goldie is going to speak to us today a little bit about time of use implementation, and Lucy Ricci will talk about our financial statements. And my voice is really going. So we've developed a new vision, mission, and organizational values for the corporation. We've engaged a broad representation of contributions from staff and the board to land on this new set. We energize you is our new vision. We provide your best energy and conservation solutions, our mission, and our corporate values of behavior, safety, customer focus, accountability, innovation, teamwork, communications, integrity, and respect. We are excited with this new view, and we're integrating these leadership and guiding philosophies into our operations. Here is Oakville Hydro at a glance. We are predominantly an electricity distribution company regulated by the Ontario Energy Board, Oakville Hydro Electricity Distribution, Inc. Our unregulated businesses provide innovative renewable energy generation and energy management solutions through Oakville Hydro Energy Services, Inc. As well, we operate a full-service underground utility construction company, Elcon Construction. We are the 13th largest LDC by customer size in the province. We now have 63,386 customers. This is a growth of 1,100 customers over 2010, approximately 1.7% customer growth rate. Our peak load grew in Oakville in 2010 by 4.4%, bringing us up to 355 megawatts. The province of Ontario's peak in 2010 was about 28,000 megawatts. So Oakville represents about 1.3% of the Ontario electrical load. Financially, we had a very good year in 2010. As a result of the sale of Blink Communications, we provided a special dividend of $40 million to the town last year. In 2010, we also paid a regular dividend of $2.6 million from 2009's operations. And this year, we are paying a dividend of $2.8 million from 2010's operations. I'm pleased with the performance of the organization and look forward to continuing to provide good value to the shareholder moving forward. In 2010, we undertook a number of significant initiatives. Smart meters were installed in all residents in the town in preparation for time of use implementation. Construction of the Glenorchy transformer station was started. We achieved good results on the Ontario Power Authority's conservation and demand management programs, and work on the conversion to the IFRS accounting standard progressed very well. The Glenorchy transformer station, we're pretty excited about this. The transformer station is located at 6th line in the 407. It is a 153 megawatt station, converts power from the 230,000 volt transmission line from Hydro 1 down to the utilization voltage of 27.6 kV for distribution. This station will be owned and operated by Oakville Hydro and will provide service capacity in North Oakville, and will be operational in July. So this project has gone very well, and we're very proud to add it to the fleet of distribution equipment infrastructure to provide Oakville with power. An outlook for 2011. We're creating a greater focus on customer service and have a customer service satisfaction survey underway. This is an important new initiative for us. Time of use pricing implementation is underway, and Mr. Tom Goldie will be speaking about that in a few minutes. We're implementing an occupational health and safety management system and have just launched a major Staying Alive safety campaign across the organization. Our system reliability continues to be strong. We are better than industry averages and are comparable to our utility neighbors with respect to reliability. We're investing $13 million into the distribution plant annually. This amount will grow over the next number of years to address infrastructure replacements, equipment upgrades, new development, and smart grid infrastructure. We are working with the Halton Utilities Group, Burlington, Milton, Halton Hills, and Oakville Hydros on joint initiatives, and for our first project, we're proposing a solar panel on top of the regional headquarters. Our industry faces many challenges. Our reason for existing is to provide safe and reliable power to the customers of Oakville. This is our mandate. Electricity is a basic essential service, and it needs to be there when you flip the switch. We are in an era of balancing competing priorities. Aging infrastructure needs replacing. Our workforces are aging. Customer expectations are increasing. We need to balance today's cost pressures with the long-term health and reliability of the distribution system, and we need to contribute to and help customers reduce their energy costs. New for this year is the provincial conservation and demand management targets mandated by the Ontario Energy Board. Across the province, the target is 1,330 megawatts by 2014. Oakville Hydro's contribution will be 21 megawatts. So we are rolling out programs across the town in order to address this requirement. And further, the Green Energy Act requires us to accommodate distributed generation and smart grid infrastructure. These are very exciting challenges that we face. The bottom line for all these challenges, though, is value for the customer. At Oakville Hydro, we test our assumptions and plans against the value we are creating for our customers to validate our directions and to ensure we balance the competing priorities. And as our vision indicates, we want to energize you. In our unregulated business, Ontario Hydro Energy Services, Oakville Hydro Energy Services, we are rebuilding this business after the sale of Blink. Our strategy is to invest in energy-related businesses, develop community energy projects, and organically grow our existing business units. We have three distinct businesses: renewable generation, focusing on district energy and renewable technologies; Alcon, our underground utility construction business, focusing on outsourced services for local distribution companies and municipalities; and our energy services business, furthering our development in smart home solutions, tankless water heaters, green electricity sales, and multi-residential metering solutions. And we are also pleased to announce that last week the Ontario Power Authority granted us the power purchase agreement for the solar panels on top of this building here. So we are working with town staff and hope to finalize the details and move forward with this project in the fall. At this point, I would ask Tom Goldie to come forward and present some information on the time of use implementation. Tom? Oh, or questions?
Councillor Khan.
Sorry. Is that all right, or do you want to wait till we have all the speakers? Can you tell me a little bit about the solar panel project and what we expect to be, how much do we expect to be selling it to the grid at?
The solar panel installation here at the town is about a 70 kilowatt unit, which represents about taking 6 to 7 residential homes off the grid, or roughly about, I think it's about 2% of 2.3% of the town hall consumption. So in terms of the capacity and the contribution to the electricity consumption, that'd be the magnitude.
And also, can you tell me just a little bit about what's happening with our electricity production at this site, at the waste site on Bronte Road?
Well, we continue to generate electricity from the recovery of methane gas from the waste management site, and that's about a 2 megawatt facility, and it's bubbling along, and the region continues to add pipes as the landfill grows, and we continue to extract the gas and generate electricity and sell it back to the grid.
That's been profitable for Oakville Hydro?
Yes, it has been, yes.
Councillor Elgar.
Thank you for the presentation. With the solar on the roof at the town hall, are we going to get the payback? Is that, because it's roof mounted, does that give us the 80 cents?
Scott, is it 71.3 is the rate that that Oakville Hydro will receive on the electricity generated on this particular panel.
Okay, that's pretty good, I would say. Excellent. And you said it's going to be 70?
70 megawatts, 70 kilowatts.
70 kilowatt
Yeah.
system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Reliability has been an issue from certain businesses, and I noticed you said that's better than industry averages. Where are we as far as reliability, and what is our target of where we're going? There was a computer firm, I remember the guy was so upset where he had to move because of, he felt, not enough reliability. And I'm wondering where we're going with regard to reliability for industry.
Yeah, well, Oakville's reliability is as good or better than industry averages. The reliability is very good in this town. We do not guarantee power. We are not structured in order to provide 100% power. Customers are able to purchase that capability through extra equipment. So there are some businesses that are very sensitive to voltage fluctuations or power blips, and for those organizations, typically they would put in their own backup generation in order to accommodate those blips. So we are not going down the path of providing 100% reliable power.
What percentage are we targeting to provide?
Well, there is a sort of a range of what would be considered acceptable reliability in industry, and it really depends on whether there's an underground distribution, overhead distribution, urban versus rural. And the Ontario Energy Board is starting to pay a bit more attention to what would be considered reasonable bands of reliability. But I would indicate that our reliability now is good, and we are balancing our investments in order to maintain the current level of reliability.
Do you know the numbers? I'm just curious.
Well, I do know the numbers, but they're in terms of a customer average interruption duration index and a system average interruption duration index, and so they're actually normalized numbers, and our numbers float around 0.97 to 1.2, but those aren't really meaningful numbers to explain. So the number of interruptions and the frequency of interruptions that we have are typical of utilities in an urban, suburban area. I can come back to you at a later date with further information to break that down to give you better information on that.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Because
Certainly can do that.
And it's mainly due to computer businesses for whatever reason. And I'd like to be able to come back and say, well, here's where we are. and this is where everyone else is. Like, is there anybody better than us?
Some utilities are better in terms of frequency, some are better in terms of duration, and so certainly there are some utilities that are better, and there's lots that are not as good. And again, it fluctuates from year to year depending on the weather circumstances, but I'd be very happy to bring forward information to explain. Excuse me, to explain
Thank you,
it.
appreciate that.
Yep, I will take that away.
Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Worship. Couple questions. First of all, how does the move to smart electronic metering impact your meter business? So, I mean, last time I was in the site, it was predominantly the mechanical meters that the shop was servicing. Have you made the switch over to electronic meter servicing, and will there be an impact on the bottom line with this new meter system?
We used our meter shop. You talk about our meter shop that we have. We used our meter shop in order to seal the smart meters that we installed. So
it's a business as well. We provide. I'm thinking of the business that we provide to other utilities.
Yes.
How does the move to electronic meters impact that that business?
Yeah. So that's one of the business that we are reevaluating, because as the smart meters will still need to be recalibrated over certain periods of time, and it's yet to be known just what that frequency is going to be in terms of the kind of problem. So we are reevaluating that business to see whether it still makes sense to be in it, because certainly the volume has dropped now that there's been a wholesale change out of all the meters. At the moment, we still need the shop for our own purposes, but in terms of business opportunity and growth opportunity, it's something we're evaluating.
So right now, at the current switchover rate, how much longer does the current business have before it becomes irrelevant?
Before it becomes
irrelevant, before it becomes no longer necessary to provide that service?
It would always be irrelevant, be a matter of scale.
Right.
There'll always be service providers in the business. It's a matter of whether there's enough volume within the shop in order to make it economically viable.
And is there an opportunity for the adjustment of electronic meters? Is that a viable opportunity to switch to in the future?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Elgar, I think, was the one who asked the question about the rate of payment for the solar power, and he said 71.3 cents per kilowatt hour. Correct? Is that how long is that guaranteed?
That's a 20-year.
20 years. Okay. And do you have we've been asking for updates on various projects. Do you have any update on or maybe this is coming from the hospital update site, do you have any update on the cogeneration plant at the Oakville Hospital site?
I will defer to the item that's later on in the agenda.
That's on the agenda later? Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the rate, what's the term for, I can't remember the term for buyback when the province buys the energy back. There's a term for that. Feed-in tariff. I'm trying to remember the term. Thank you. The feed-in tariff, it's different depending on the type of energy?
Depending on the type of renewable energy, like wind would be different than solar, which would be different than biogas, which would be, yes.
So what are we getting for biogas?
11.7 cents.
Ooh, it's a lot less. Okay. And what is the rate for the cogeneration at the hospital expected to be?
I think you should wait for my report on that.
Okay. My next question then, getting off that topic, is Oakville Hydro considering, or is this even still something that hydro utilities are considering at all, IP over power line? Is that something that Hydro has ever considered as a business model? IP over power line?
Internet protocol over power line? Yeah. It is not something that we are looking at. I don't think that currently in Canada there's a lot looking at that, but it's been a technology that's been looked at over the years, but it doesn't seem to be something that's...
It's an interesting alternative with all the controversy around the delivery of internet signal through cellular transmission. It would be an interesting possibility to change the mode of delivery. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Thank you, Mr. Lister. We look forward to Vice President Golding's report.
Thank you.